Hello my dear friends and family, I'm Operator Starsky with new updates on happily burning Russian oil refineries, steadily failing Russian offensive and Lavrov's face getting older and sadder, just like an old Lada quietly rusting in the backyard since Perestroika. This is the Frontline Focus, let's roll. So another week in Russia and surprise, surprise, the things just keep exploding because the infamous so-called Russian special military operation has finally returned home to its motherland. The most impressive fireworks in Russia were observed, for example, on 20th of August in the area of Novoshachtinsk oil refinery, which is in Rostov Oblast, where Ukrainian drones paid a friendly visit and the refinery caught such a spectacular fire it could probably be seen from the outer space. 4 days later, this very refinery was still burning like a Soviet Lada carburetor. Next day, on 21st of August, the Druzhba oil pipeline pumping station in Bryansk Oblast got toasted. In Russian, Druzhba means friendship. The Russians actually used this word a lot shortly before they invaded Ukraine. Apparently today in Russia this word also means call firefighters. On August 24th, Ukraine celebrated its Independence Day by hitting the major Russian port facility on the Baltic, specifically the Ust-Luga fuel export terminal located in the Leningrad Oblast. Now this one is a gem because this terminal is actually a primary Russian facility that's got absolutely hammered by a swarm of good Ukrainian drones. The official Russian line: many drones were intercepted. If this is what the Russian version of interception looks like, I can't wait to see a failure. Also yesterday, good Ukrainian drones targeted Syzran oil refinery in Samara Oblast. I think we've already mentioned this one several times. This refinery pumps out gasoline, diesel and even jet fuel for the Russian military, which obviously makes it a perfect target. Ukrainian drones agreed and Syzran had a really bad hair day. Also, I think it's important to mention that this Russian refinery has been actually built in the early 40s. In fact, it's so old, so probably it still runs on Lenin's 5-year plans. So really maybe Ukrainian drones were just speeding up the modernization. Now, do you want to know the most interesting fact about those strikes? So previously Russians were saying that the internationally wanted war criminal Putin won't negotiate with Zelenskyy. For example, in a recent interview with NBC, the Russian man with the face of a dying horse, Sergei Lavrov, declared that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is illegitimate. Took only a dozen strikes on the Russian refineries to change their stupid narratives. Now Sergei Lavrov is saying that Ukraine's President Zelenskyy is a person worth talking to. However, again, this may change because the Russian invaders are traditionally doing all they can to avoid direct meeting between President Zelenskyy and war criminal Putin, so to me it doesn't look like it's gonna happen in the observable future, or at least not before Russia loses all of its oil refineries to the good Ukrainian drones. What else did Lavrov say? Lavrov outlined Russia's conditions for peace in Ukraine, which basically didn't change since 2022 and can be easily renamed to Ukraine's act of capitulation. It involves Ukraine losing most of its military power as well as a third of its territory and basically becoming a geopolitical nobody full of Russia's influence and expecting the Russian terrorists to attack it one more time. In essence, Lavrov's peace plan is basically like ordering pizza with every topping imaginable and then insisting the pizzeria deliver this to your house free of charge within 30 minutes with a bonus 6-pack of beer and hot chicken wings. In case Ukraine refuses, Lavrov threatened to continue doing what Russia does best, like sending thousands of Russian men into daily meat waves with almost zero result for 2 years straight. Additionally, Lavrov accused Western leaders of resisting peace efforts in Ukraine, contrasting them with US President Donald Trump, whom he praised for pursuing a resolution. In Lavrov's world, the West is the villain and the Russia is a misunderstood hero, valiantly seeking peace. This beautiful democratic country without working sewers where the biggest value is, of course, people's welfare and freedom, run by a tiny dude wearing high heels for the past 20 years, bombing thousands of people in Georgia, Syria, and Ukraine, poisoning and shooting its adversaries all over the world and stealing kids from their parents, has been simply misunderstood. Orwell is crying quietly right now in his grave, yet there are individuals who believe it's true. Anyways, Sergei Lavrov's recent statements offered a masterclass in diplomatic doublespeak, but because he's old, it doesn't work anymore. It's like, remember when last year he said that Russia didn't invade Ukraine, which caused a lot of giggle in the audience. I'm actually happy that Lavrov is still Russian spokesman. They really don't need a different one. I think that individuals like Lavrov and Nebenzia are exactly what Russians deserve. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Russia continues burning its healthiest men in the pointless meat assaults in Ukraine, with the average death toll of approximately 1,000 Russian invaders on a daily basis, which can be easily doubled if we want to get rid of the Russian terrorism faster. In order to make it happen, we should continue supporting Ukrainian defenders and disabling Russian propaganda where it's possible. The front lines remain pretty much stationary despite all Russia's efforts and manpower. However, in some cases, Ukrainian armed forces even claim small victories. For example, yesterday it was reported that villages of Zeleny High and Novomikhailivka were cleared from the Russian troops. I wonder, when will Ukrainian soil stop accepting Russian fertilizer? Or is it so good so it just keeps swallowing tons of them? I have no idea. If you know, please share your thoughts in the comments. With that, my dear friends and family, I wish you a beautiful day. Don't forget to subscribe to stay informed about the most important updates, and also share this content to help Ukraine be heard. I'll see you in the commentaries. I'm Operator Starsky. As always, be safe.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.